Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Common Core Mathematics presentation for parents. Before we begin, let's think about the types of mathematics that we do on a daily basis. The fact of the matter is that mathematics plays a very important role in our daily lives, from calculating the cost of gas we want to put in our car, to estimating the cost of groceries, to perhaps handling a $1 million budget at work. No matter what we do, mathematics is very much an integral part of our day. So what is shifting? The Common Core in mathematics create more of a balance between skills and understanding. Skills refer to the ability to simply calculate and solve problems, while understanding refers to actually knowing how and why mathematics works. Under the Common Core standards, your child will 1. Work more deeply with fewer topics. This means that instead of learning a little about a lot, students will be given the time they need to master skills so they have a foundation from which to build. Number 2, your child will keep building on learning year after year. Once we focus on fewer concepts, we have the ability to build on student understanding and make connections to previous learning and the major work of their grade level. Each standard is not a new learning, but instead it is an extension of previous learning. Number 3, your child will spend time practicing math facts. Students need to know math facts, not only fluently, but also accurately. For example, in 3rd grade, we know that is when students learn their multiplication facts, and we want them to know them automatically, quickly, and accurately. Number 4, understand why mathematics works and be asked to talk about and prove their understanding. Put simply, having that fluency of multiplication facts without an understanding of the concept of multiplication is not enough. Students need to know more than tricks. They need to really understand how and why math works. And number 5, your child will use math in real-world situations. Thinking about the question at the beginning of the presentation, we know that ultimately mathematics serves to help us on a daily basis, and so we will expect and help students to apply their mathematical understandings to real-world situations. This slide gives a visual representation of how the mathematics standards are written. Here you see an example of kindergarten. As you can see at the top, we have what's called a domain, in this case counting and cardinality. Below the domain is what's called a cluster. These clusters are groups of related standards within the domain. And finally, we see the standards. These are what students should understand and be able to do. The Common Core in mathematics are made up of 2 types of standards. First, the mathematical content standards, which are different at each grade level, and also the 8 mathematical practice standards, which are identical for each grade level. Together, these standards address both habits of mind, or the way of thinking about mathematics, that students should develop to gain mathematics. The Common Core in mathematics are made up of 2 types of standards. First, the mathematical content standards, which are different at each grade level, and also the 8 mathematical practice standards, which are identical for each grade level. Together, these standards address the habits of mind, or the way of thinking about mathematics that students should develop to gain mathematical understanding, skills, and knowledge. Next, we are going to talk about both types of standards. The standards for mathematical practice are the same at every grade level. Math practice number 1 states that students are able to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. When presented with a problem, I can make a plan, carry out my plan, and check its success. Mathematical practice number 2 states that students can reason abstractly and quantitatively. I can use numbers, words, and reasoning habits to help me make sense of problems. The reasoning habits include thinking about the units that are involved, paying attention to the meaning of the numbers, make an understandable representation of the problem, and using the properties of operations or objects. Mathematical practice number 3 states that students will construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. I can make logical arguments and respond to the mathematical thinking of others. This is done by using objects, drawings and diagrams, examples, but also by listening to others, by asking and answering questions, and comparing each other's strategies. Practice number 4 states that students can model with mathematics. I can recognize math in everyday life and use math I know to solve problems. Practice number 5 states that students use appropriate tools strategically. I can use certain tools to help me explore and deepen my math understanding. This also means that the student knows how and when to use the math tools, and also ask themselves, did the tool I used give me an answer that makes sense? Mathematical practice number 6 states that students can attend to precision. I can be precise when solving problems and clear when communicating my ideas. This means that they communicate with others using math vocabulary with clear definitions, symbols that have meaning, labels, units of measure, and calculations that are accurate and efficient. Mathematical practice number 7 states that students can look for and make use of structure. I can see and understand how numbers and spaces are organized and then put together as parts and wholes. And practice number 8 states that students can look for and express regularity in repeated reasoning. I can notice when calculations are repeated, and then I can find more general methods and shortcuts. For example, as I work, I think about what I'm trying to figure out while I pay attention to the details, and I evaluate to see if my results are reasonable. Now we're going to take a look at some examples of content standard work at each grade level. In kindergarten, the major areas of focus are knowing number names and counting in sequence, counting to tell the number of objects, comparing numbers, working with numbers 11 through 19 to gain a foundation for place value, and understanding that addition is putting together and adding to, while understanding that subtraction is taking apart and taking from. In first grade, the major areas of focus are that students are able to represent and solve problems involving addition and subtraction, understand the relationship between addition and subtraction, add and subtract within 20, understand place value and use it to add and subtract, and measuring lengths. In second grade, the major clusters are being able to represent and solve problems involving addition and subtraction, adding and subtracting within 20, understanding place value and using it to add and subtract, measure and estimate lengths in standard units, and relate addition and subtraction to length. In third grade, students will represent and solve problems involving multiplication and division. They will understand the relationship between multiplication and division, multiply and divide within 100, solve problems involving the four operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. They will identify and explain patterns in arithmetic, develop an understanding of fractions, solve problems involving measurement and time, liquid volume, and the masses of objects, and they will understand the concept of area. In fourth grade, students use the four operations with whole numbers to solve problems. They understand place value for multi-digit whole numbers, and they use it to perform multi-digit arithmetic. They understand fraction, equivalence, and ordering, understand the decimal notation for fractions, and also compare decimal fractions. In fifth grade, the major areas of focus include understanding the place value system, performing operations with multi-digit whole numbers and with decimals to the hundredths place, use equivalent fractions to add and subtract fractions, multiply and divide fractions, and understand volume. In sixth grade, students understand ratio and use it to solve problems. They divide fractions by fractions, understand rational numbers, build an understanding of algebraic equations, reason and solve one variable equations, and represent and analyze the relationship between dependent and independent variables. In seventh grade, the major clusters include analyzing proportional relationships and using them to solve real-world problems, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing rational numbers, generating equivalent expressions, and solving real-life and mathematical problems using both numerical and algebraic expressions and equations. And in eighth grade, students work with radicals and integer exponents. They understand the connections between proportional relationships, lines, and linear equations. They will analyze and solve linear equations and pairs of simultaneous linear equations, define, evaluate, and compare functions. They will use functions to model relationships between quantities. And in geometry, they will understand congruence and similarity and understand and apply the Pythagorean theorem. Don't let your child be a Calvin. How can you help? Supporting your child's mathematical learning at home is extremely important. So stay informed about which concepts your child is learning in school. Ask your child what they are learning each day. Help your child know basic mathematical facts. Assist them with their speed and accuracy. Have your child do the mathematics that pops up in daily life. There are so many opportunities each day that we can turn into a fun math problem. Going to the store? See how close your child can get to the total by using estimation. Ask your child's teacher for assistance if something is confusing. Don't let time go by. If there is something your child doesn't understand and you're not sure either, talk to the teacher right away. And ensure that they are doing their homework every day. Make sure your child has a regular homework time and a quiet area that will allow him or her to focus. With our commitment to providing a top quality education and your support at home, we can help ensure that your child develops the mathematical habits of mind that will make them college and career ready by the time they graduate. This concludes this presentation. If you would like further information about the Common Core, please visit our website at www.santsd.net. Go to Parent Resources, Introduction to Common Core State Standards, and then the Especially for Parents link, where you will find many great resources. Thank you for joining us.